Right, we're on air. Cool. Okay. Easy.
That's the only one you're getting.
There you go, that'd be alright.
You get a couple from me because I'm a generous man.
You tricked me into doing it already.
That was a pitiful clap, but I'll be able to hear it and like narrow you
Good.
down. We are live now as well, by the way. So hello, chat room.
Hello, chat.
Hey, chat.
Da, 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 da. Right. Don't worry, Shadow Ballista, you just entered. You haven't missed a thing yet.
Should we get us started then?
Yeah, I think we should. Let me just get everything up. Cool. Right. So, let me just have like a final sip of my tea before we go.
You are allowed to drink during, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like I need to loosen my throat before we start. Okay. Cool. So, hello, game debate people and YouTube people today, because we are streaming on YouTube's gaming channel for the first time, which means you might get a couple of other people in the chat, which should always be quite good. So, first of all, welcome to your weekly fix on the gaming and hardware news. My name's Tim, and today we're going to be talking about the latest hardware, and we've also got some sort of juicy news about games as well. So each week, for the last 2 weeks, if you've been watching, we've been trying out slightly different formats. So this week, we've got a couple of us to sing. I'm reading the chat, and all I can see is like Rob should sing, and it's like
Don't join in.
the words now.
Don't join in with them.
Eventually, I think we should at some point.
No.
But before we move on, I think it'd be good to sort of introduce the people that we've got here today. So our first guest back from the first episode is Jack. Jack, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well.
Cool. And I think before we saw you last, you were at the League of Legends thing, wasn't you? The live
Yeah, the
thing.
quarterfinals.
How was
in
it?
London.
How was it watching people playing games in real life as opposed to watching them on your computer? Was it?
It was actually incredible. I mean, we got a little bit drunk and a little bit rowdy, because the atmosphere was so huge, and we brought a vuvuzela with us. So if anyone was watching and was there and heard the vuvuzela, that was us. And it was great games, really just cool to watch and cool to be a part of. I thought it'd be a lot more cringy in a way, but it was really well put together, very professional, and looked really good.
So do they show the games on like a massive screen and you like click and go through that, or is it how do you watch it? Can you see the players like clicking and stuff? Like how far away?
Well, they're on the stage in front of you. It's Wembley Arena, and everyone's just in chairs, sort of in stools. Like imagine your standard performance of anything, and then they're on the stage and there's a giant screen up behind them, so you can see sort of what the cameramen are showing, and you can also see them on stage, but you can't see their screens.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I guess it's all new as well now. It's just sort of interesting to see how they're going to do it, because I think getting people to sit on a stage and look at a monitor and play games maybe would be quite difficult to show.
Well, in the semi-finals, which is happening right now, and this week, they've got a different stage where it's in the middle and they're back to back. It's a lot more visual. I think they saved the better stages for the finals and stuff.
That's pretty sick. That's pretty cool. And as well, as every week, we also have Rob along. How's it going, Rob?
Hey, yeah, good, thanks.
Have you been up to much this week?
No.
Nothing
new.
I do like your
Sorry.
headphones, by the way. Are they lighting up and coming off?
Got the glow stuff going on every so often.
Smooth.
Same as the first video. But
Wow. Did we mention them then? We should have mentioned them.
No, you didn't.
I feel like we should have. Oh, well. So today we've got a bit of a bit of a different format. So we're going to go over a couple of shows. Hello again to everyone in the chat. We think we now have about 13 people watching, which is a good place to start. I think we can go up from here. If everyone sort of goes along, asks everyone they know on the internet to come and check us out and sort of watch what we're talking about. And as this is the third episode, I thought it would be quite good to start with like a competition just right off the bat and see whether because I think I'm a generous man, and Game Debate we're pretty generous, and we want to give people the chance to play games. So I'm going to pose this to Rob and Jack first, and because it's our third episode, what I want you to do is, like, without Googling, well, you probably won't have time to Google, but I want you to, if you can you name the 3 richest game developers in the world with their value, and maybe guess their value in dollars. It's not too difficult, I think.
What, the companies you mean?
The companies, yeah. The game developers, this is the richest game developers.
Notch.
As in companies, yeah.
I don't know his company name.
No idea?
Rockstar, Mojang, and Activision Blizzard.
So out of those you mentioned, one of them is in the top 10, and neither of them in the top 3.
Well, damn.
It's pretty obvious in a way. If I say, like, if you think of the consoles.
Microsoft.
So
Nintendo.
Yeah. So Nintendo are number 3. So they're the biggest game. They're the 3rd richest game publisher. Then Microsoft Studios are number 2. Can you guess what number 1 would be?
It's taken me ages to keep clicking next on
Well,
these web pages.
following the pattern, I'd say Sony.
Yeah, Sony. So Sony Computer Entertainment. So Sony Computer Entertainment are worth $13.4 billion. Microsoft at $12.8 billion. Nintendo 6.2. So Nintendo actually have half the wealth that
Pocket
Microsoft
change.
has.
6.2 billion.
So, in order for the chat, for everyone to win, so basically we're going to give you a free copy of Shogun 2, which is like one of the great Total War games. And the winner, what I want you to do is I want you to see if you can say, the first person in the chat to say what number 8 is on this list. So I don't know how quick people will be.
Do they need to go from the same list as you? Is yours the most up to date?
Yeah, they need to go from my list, what I've got in front of me. So it's not the most up to date. It's from last year. But if you can tell me who the 8th richest game developer is, then you'll win a prize.
We can come back to it.
We could come back to it.
Probably best.
Give people-
Everyone was guessing before. There we go. The 8th richest, yeah. So not Valve. It's not EA. EA are number 7.
We've got Bethesda as a guess as well.
Bethesda aren't on this list. It's not Blizzard. Blizzard are number 5.
Does it begin with a K? Is that the same list?
It could do,
It
yeah.
is, it could, right.
Not Treyarch. Treyarch, one of the richest game developers. What are you on, Andrew Ashton?
Justin Bieber. Strong.
It's not Justin Bieber.
It's not.
Strong guess.
You are one word away from winning a free game, if you can guess. I think once Rob's comment comes out, people will guess. Ubisoft? No, Ubisoft are number 9.
Yeah, probably not, no.
Jagex?
No.
No, again. Jeez. DICE? No. Oh, yes.
There we go.
There we go.
Nailed it.
Tizmanek, you got it right. Konami is actually the 8th biggest, or the 8th richest company. So they're at $3.24 billion they have. So well done for that. That's pretty good, I thought. People got there in the end. I thought the most difficult one would be number 6, which is Namco Bandai. And I don't think anyone would be able to guess that. Maybe they can. Maybe one day. So, moving on. So the first story we're going to talk about this week is to do with sort of virtual reality. Is that Rob? Are you looking forward to virtual reality? Do you think it's going to be fun, big when it comes out?
It really is fun. And yeah it's getting pretty big. So.
I mean, one thing we should say is that we are a bit biased here. So like in the room with me, I actually have, so this is like a Gear VR. So this is like Samsung's virtual reality device, which works with the S6. At the moment, I don't have an S6, so it's just like this placeholder thing inside it. But this is pretty cool. You look at the lenses.
It's currently paperweight, but
it is pretty thin as well. It also comes with a strap. And as well, for anyone who's been sort of following virtual reality, we've got an HTC Vive headset as well. So there's actually a Vive in the room. Do you think people will like what people look like in VR? Can you imagine people doing Let's Plays like this, where they're just sat there like playing a game with this headset on and trying to talk as well?
They already do.
Do they do that already?
Yeah. The people who put themselves in the bottom corner of their YouTube videos, they've already got some VR ones on the go, and it looks as good as you do now.
I always end up getting VR hair whenever I try this stuff on, but it is pretty cool to like walk around in and stuff. Are you gonna get an Oculus Rift, Jack? Do you think?
Yeah, I definitely am, especially now that I know I can.
Yeah.
I backed Star Citizen really early, and that's
Really?
my main attraction. Yeah, huge sci-fi fan, and that game looks to be the end of my real life. And I figure, let's go whole hog, VR it up.
Definitely, I think. So, if you haven't guessed already, our first story today is about the Oculus Rift. So this week, virtual reality company Oculus have stated that the GTX 970 will be enough to run every game on the Oculus Rift store and for the CV1 headset. So if you're not aware, the 970 was released last year and around September, and it currently retails around £250, which is about $380 and about 350 euros. So saying that this will work across all games is quite interesting. So it seems like Oculus are really taking the route of making sure it's almost like a console where people don't have to upgrade their hardware all the time. It is quite nice to know that we won't have to upgrade graphics cards for every different game that's coming out. But I think that also with that, there could potentially be some challenges for developers. So the Oculus CEO has actually said this isn't going to be the console 5, 6, 7 year life cycle. VR is going to move fast. It's going to innovate and evolve really rapidly. So I think one of the things with VR now is, we're going to see these first headsets coming out, but there is going to be probably quite a bit of iteration across the hardware. So, so my first question to Rob, really. So, as a developer, what do you think that having the same specification for across all the games, how will that affect game developers?
I mean, I think developers already prefer creating things for consoles for that reason, is that from the outset how much you've got to work with. You don't need to worry about different quality options. You can just try and squeeze as much power as you can out of the system you're working with. But you kind of need that for VR, because what you need to remember is you're rendering everything twice, essentially, in like a simplistic term. What you're doing is you're taking the game, you're splitting it to 2 screens. So you're rendering everything twice. So all of your draw calls are being doubled, all of your vert counts are being doubled. So you can only get half of the quality out of a VR game normally if you want it to run on the same spec as what a standard game would. So having those sort of set criteria will definitely help. Again, people get used to squeezing the most out of a certain platform like that.
So the 970 now is about a year old as a graphics card. How it goes? Do you think that that's enough power, or it's good to have that for a year, or they should have maybe picked something more powerful?
It's strange that they've used that term, or that they're making that claim that it will run anything on their store.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what's on their store at the moment. I've been trying to find it, but there's no real information. But I mean, we obviously work with VR, and we're using systems much less powerful than something running a 970, and it works fine for a lot of the stuff. It's just keeping in mind the actual limitations you're going to get with them. So yeah, I mean, even though it's been out for a year, I think there's plenty of stuff you can still do with those cards. Yeah.
And Jack, sort of as a consumer, as someone, I guess have you tried VR yet properly before?
No, I haven't at all. Never had the chance. It's behind quite a big paywall to someone like me, I think. I can't just walk into sort of, work and like try something out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, it's just been brought a coffee and she's trying to hide.
Show her to the world. And so I've been aware that I'm not probably going to be able to enjoy it properly until it's been launched and it's in the market. So I've been happy with that. There's going to be a lot of bugs and problems and stuff, and I don't know enough about the technicality of it to help. So but I want to be a part of the first wave. That's partly why I upgraded my computer, was in hopes that it would be enough for when it did come out.
So looking at your graphics card, I mean, you have a 970, so that basically means you're going to be able to play all the virtual reality games that come out. What do you think the reception of it will be? Do you think it will, do you think people will rush out and buy them if they got the right hardware, or do you think people will wait? I think the retail price they haven't said officially yet, but it's potentially going to be around £300, maybe a bit less.
Well, I've spoken to lots of my friends about it, and I know gamers and non-gamers, and the gamers almost all say, yeah, it's awesome, I can't wait, VR's amazing. But then people who don't play games, a lot of people I speak to, it scares them. Like one of my friends, he loves being outdoors, and technology's not really his thing. And I've shown him some games, and he's really appreciated them. Things like Amnesia. And I showed him the Oculus stuff, and he was genuinely really upset by it. And he said, "I don't like it. That it's gonna take people out of the real world." So I think the biggest hurdle that VR has to reaching new consumers is the stigma of it, of this like, oh, we're giving up on reality and stuff, which I don't agree with personally. But
I think it's it's like a different way. I think the thing for me is with VR headsets now. So if I'm playing a game, I don't know how bad everyone else is, but I have a phone in my hand. I'm watching something on TV maybe. I've got like 4 different things on at a time. And with a VR headset, you really have to like immerse yourself inside. Like you can't put on the headset and check your phone or do something like that. I think the reception is going to be quite interesting to see whether it does take off initially or whether it's just like another Kinect basically, which came and went. I think there's more traction to it than that. I think there's definitely more scope for VR. I don't think it's going to come and go away. Maybe like Kinect and PlayStation Move and all that technology has done, but I think it's definitely interesting. It'll be interesting to see next year what the actual reception will be and how many people will look at it. But like as well, like you just look so cool with it on, don't you? I think, like, I don't know, it is pretty terrifying, isn't it?
This look like something out of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, most people in the chat have disagreed with you there, Tim.
What? Well, fine.
You look cool.
I think someone said you look like something from the 1980s earlier, which I think is pretty spot on.
This headset, even though it does look quite heavy, it is actually really surprisingly light compared to it. And this is, so as well, to point out, this is actually a development kit. So the one that actually does come out will be, a lot lighter than that as well, I think. Ooh.
People are saying as well that being constantly dragged into the action is kind of weird. And I think that's an interesting point, is that some games are designed to be sit back with a controller and not pay attention. So I think it's going to work for a very specific type of game. These more like narrative-based stuff. I mean, you've seen a lot more narrative-based games come out like that. With what was that one that was like Heavy Rain, for instance?
Yeah.
And like MGS, for instance, is another great example. Cutscene-heavy games. Having an Oculus where you could properly look around the scene and take in, details would be incredible.
I think what people overlook is that the Oculus isn't another platform. It's just another peripheral. So, in the same way that you don't buy a steering wheel set to play first-person shooters and action games, you know that you buy a steering wheel to play your racing games because that will be what they're best used for. You're not going to buy a VR headset to play puzzle games or 2D side scrollers. You're going to buy them to play something immersive, something maybe first-person or whatever uses, or developers are still trying to find what best suits virtual reality. Some people are saying over-the-shoulder camera perspectives are really good for VR now, just because you get a kind of God mode feel that you're overlooking things rather than just always resorting to going first person. But yeah, it's just a case you want to remember that it's a peripheral, not a console or a new platform as such.
I think I do partly agree with you and disagree with you a bit. I think because of the way games have to be made for virtual, I mean, you can't just sort of take an existing game now and put it into it. The games, with the mechanics, with a headset on, you can't look at everything. Everything is almost completely different to how people have made games in the past. With different, with more visibility, being able to look around more. There's really, a completely new perspective you have to take to game design. And if you do have an Oculus Rift, you go on Oculus Share now and play the games. Like, there's not that much good stuff on there. There's a lot of stuff of people trying to make stuff that's quite cool, but generally, it's I wouldn't say it's like the top notch or the type of games people expect to see yet. And that's why it'll be interesting as well for me, because there isn't those like typical games that always make money. And like all the big titles like Assassin's Creed on launch, and it's going to be now, and it's going to be interesting to see how it takes off, because I can't see myself buying one unless I can get Assassin's Creed and all stuff like that on it, really. But I think we'll see how it goes.
Well, Rob, I wanted to ask you a question, because you said how it's a peripheral more than a platform. And that my question with it is, I'm scared, like, because people are talking about it in chat as well, and I've felt the same, is that when the motion controls came out for the consoles, it felt really gimmicky, and then the way people could think, people and my friends would talk about it and say, oh, this would be really cool stuff they could do with it, but it just came out as really gimmicky. Everyone was just trying to copy each other and get the peripheral out. Do you think that's going to be a problem with VR, with a lot of companies just pushing something out to copy what's coming out?
Yeah, I mean, some of the worst experiences I've tried on different VR headsets have been the ones where they've just dragged something they've probably already had lying around and went, oh, we can put a VR camera on that and that will work, and it doesn't. It's terrible. You definitely need to make sure you've got the correct design, and what you want to do is if you're going to make a VR game, I think you want to try and think of what the VR headset will offer over what you wouldn't normally be able to do, rather than just trying to see if a previous product would fit into the headset. But yeah, I think to begin with, I think with anything, it's going to be like a trial phase, isn't it, where people are just going to dump stuff in and try and jump on the bandwagon. So it's very likely, unfortunately, that's going to be the case to begin with.
And I think we're seeing it a bit now. So yeah, I think one of the things that Tismic said in the chat is that how effectively it's going to be implemented in games, and that is going to be the fundamental part. Are there going to be games that you want to play in VR? Are people going to be able to adopt it well enough to the point where people will want to actually play than just like a gimmick like iToy, where you have that one cool like mini game thing, and then it all just sort of disappeared after a bit.
Well, I personally think it needs to be like used as a platform as opposed to a peripheral, because I think for VR to work, it really needs to be its own media in a way. Like it really needs to, because like Rob was saying, certain games won't work. But I think if you really sat down knowing, oh, this is going to be seen through goggles, this is going to be, not necessarily observed in the same way on a flat screen, and you designed your games in a more 3D way, so everything around you was interesting, and you could go around and explore that, it could develop into its own medium in the same way that games and films can be similar and different to each other. VR could be its own genre in a way of media. And I think that would be the most interesting for me, is to see what that could do by putting people into the experience directly.
It definitely is. From the VR sort of people, developers that sort of we've spoken to, I think we know as well, like it is a completely new medium, and that is the challenge now, is to get how best to use that and how it's going to be used in the future. And I think that's one of the things that it's just going to take time to do. We're not there yet, but next year we might get a bit closer. But yeah, we can try and predict the future. We'll see. I want VR to take off, but yeah, it depends on the games, I think. Like you were saying,
i5 for an Oculus Rift as well. The i5, which I think is quite accessible.
Yeah.
Lots of gamers I know have i5. 970 is fairly high end. I really splashed out for my card. That was something I put more money into.
Yeah.
But I was actually quite surprised by it. I think a lot more people are going to be able to run it. But then, is that going to be a problem? Because you want to include as many consumers as possible so it to take off. But at the same time, you want it to be as high end as possible for the tech to develop properly.
Yeah.
So, do you guys think that an i5 is too low? Or do you think that's absolutely fine?
It's like a balance, isn't it? So you've got to get the accessibleness and you've got to get it out. I think for the initial start, to invest in a virtual reality headset is still going to cost you £300 or so. I think it's a good trade-off. So yeah, I think the requirements. Yeah, so we've got an i5, 8 gig of RAM, 970 or AMD 290. It's not something people can't work with.
Yeah, even looking at all of our specs, 100% of us have an i5 or above.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect the VR experience to really work on a laptop, and I can't imagine. The only reason I bought, for instance, an i7 is because I found it at the same price as the i5 at the time, just because it was a OEM model. I can't imagine there are many people cutting back to an i3 at the moment when they're building a rig or buying a PC, and if they are, I can't imagine that they'd want to be trying VR or having that in mind that it would work. So I think I think it's a fair specification to hedge on.
I think some of it as well is actually less than Star Wars Battlefront's requirements, which is interesting, which we'll get onto shortly. And as well, so yeah, if you are new to Game Debate, don't forget that you can, on Game Debate, you can install the Anywhere Chrome and Firefox extension, and with that, you can get your frames per second on game rates on any game on hardware, on any game you're reading about on the internet based on your hardware. So Game Debate have just updated it. So if you do install it and have a go and sort of have a look at different game sites. You can go and spend a lot of time reading about games, and then it's also a chance to win Fallout 4 this weekend. So if you haven't been on the Game Debate site now, I'd go and check it out and install the plugin. It is really good just to be able to see. I'll just go on a site and see if I can play a game before I choose to buy it or download it. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth that. So I think we quickly mentioned Battlefront then. So moving on, this week we did see the release of the Star Wars trailer. Rob, Jack, are you big Star Wars fans? Are you looking forward to the new film coming out?
No, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I'm looking forward to the film coming out because I really like J.J. Abrams, but I've just never really got on with Star Wars. As a kid, I liked it because I was a kid, but like now, it's just not for me. It's too fantasy in space. I prefer more hard sci-fi stuff.
And Rob?
I'm with Jack, so yeah, I couldn't care much less. I'm glad it's coming out. It's going to make a lot of people happy, but yeah, I might watch it when it comes out to download. But
I can't believe you have to talk about a Star Wars game with people that don't like Star Wars. I feel this is going to put a negative spin on everything. But we'll press on. So a few weeks ago, we did discuss about the controversial, really high requirements AR put out for Star Wars Battlefront, which included a graphics card that's higher than the one inside the PlayStation 4, and 16 gig of RAM as well for the recommended settings. So keeping up the controversy, the payment structure for EA's game has come under pretty heavy criticism, mainly due to the pricing plan and sort of apparent lack of content from the original launch. The game has received a hell of a lot of criticism over the last week, and so much so that one of the level designers has actually come out in defense of the games and sort of come up with some things back. So I think the first thing to do is sort of look at what the payment plans are really for. And they're doing 3 different tiers of paying. So the first one is sort of the basic standard edition. So with that, you just get the standard edition of the game. With a deluxe edition, for £4 more, you get a couple of emoticons, so people like dancing and stuff when you win a game, and you also get some instant access to stuff that you usually have to play to unlock. And alongside that as well, there's also the Ultimate Edition. So the Ultimate Edition also has the Season Pass. So the main issue around it has been that EA have tried to bring out this game, and they basically said now that all the content they sort of promised isn't necessarily going to be ready for launch. So they're going to release the game, and in order to get access to this new content, you now also have to get the Season Pass. So as the content comes out, you'll be able to play it and use it. So I think the first point in this, so with Jack, so you've played a bit of Star Wars Battlefront now. What do you think of sort of the new pricing scheme? What are EA trying to do? And is it right that they're putting in all this sort of tiered and expensive content?
Well, is it right? No, it hasn't been right since Battlefield 3, honestly. But at the same time, it's really hard to judge how unfair it is because the Season Pass hasn't come out. We have no idea what that content's going to be. They could, for all we know, be developing these epic space battles that they want to take longer on, or making, more interesting maps or whatever, making new heroes, which I know people are excited by seeing their favourite characters as playable heroes. However, having said that, I paid for premium on 3 and 4, and on 3 it felt very expensive. That was always clear, but it was a trend that had become really entrenched since Call of Duty really took off after 4, when they started charging for their map packs. And in 3, I felt while it was very expensive, I was okay spending that money for the Season Pass because I felt the content I got was detailed and rich enough that it was worth £10 or so or $10 per 4 or 5 maps, because you would gain a whole aesthetic feel to a pack. So the first one was Strike at Karkand, which brought back famous Battlefield 2 maps, which obviously, a lot of people say, oh, it's quite lazy, which it is, but it was also, those 2 maps are extremely famous, and it was really cool to play them in the new engine. And it brought in all this new destructibility and weapons, which really made the game feel like it had expanded, like an expansion packs, like they used to be. But then for 4, I felt the opposite. I felt that the maps were just lazy, just coming out, and they had these themes that were just very gimmicky and didn't feel very interesting. And I'm worried for Battlefront because when I played the game, I did not feel it was very different from the Battlefield games. It felt the same. It moved the same. It sounded the same, apart from the Star Wars sounds.
I love it. I love it how you're comparing it to Battlefield 3 and 4 as opposed to Star Wars Battlefront, which is like.
That's what it is, though. I mean, it's so far removed from the Battlefront 2 experience. Yes, you run around and you get power-ups and you can control vehicles and stuff, but it's got the Battlefield, shooting. It's got the Battlefield speed. It's got the Battlefield graphics. Even like the hit markers and stuff just feel very Battlefield. Like the points and the XP you get is Battlefield. So.
Yeah. And I think so. Rob, do you have any thoughts sort of on the pricing? I guess mainly.
Yeah, I personally think it's getting out of hand. It's a bit. The sort of thing they're doing at the moment is, as I've just to sort of reiterate that I've not followed it because I've got zero interest in this game, but I have seen a lot of things being mentioned in the media, and I do look at a lot of different gaming websites, so I have kind of caught what seems to be going on, and it sounds as though they've maybe demoed things at certain game shows which were unpolished, and then they've removed them.
Yeah.
It sounds as though they've sort of promised or mentioned that some things will be in the game and then run out of time. So what they're doing now is that they're stripping all of that back. They're charging you full price for less than what they had mentioned was going to be in the game, and then they're charging you the price of half a game every time they re-include something that they said they were going to do anyway, which it's bad practice. I mean, I know you said the artist struck back and was saying that we have to pay wages, we have to develop this, and we're adding content in this, but people used to do that. But what they did is, rather than promising a date too early for too much content, they would promise a realistic release date and get all of the content in for the release, and then maybe actually give you extra DLC on top of that, rather than giving you sections of the game because they didn't plan their time properly.
Yeah. I think just to touch on a few things there, and just to say to the chat as well, we can see what you're saying. There is a bit of a delay between what you say and us being able to respond to it. So yeah, we will comment and talk back to you guys, but yeah, there is a bit of delay. So if we do like we're ignoring you, we're not. We're just a bit further back in time. And yeah, so going back to this, the comments as well. So what the level designer said was that nothing has been cut off and saved, which I agree with. I don't think they're cutting stuff off because they're holding it back. I just think they haven't made it yet. They said they're working hard to get in there as much as possible as they can, which I think again is fair to say. But again, if they're not delivering what they actually sort of initially said they would deliver, then that sort of to charge the same and then to charge for the extra content as it comes out, I don't think that's really good enough.
It feels as though people buying it are paying for their mistake. It's like funding them to keep being slack at making promises and not delivering. That's what it feels as though people are paying for now.
So they've also said it should have been released to the main game, but that would mean they have to delay the game by a ton. But again, that's almost admitting the fact that they haven't put everything in the game that they intended to have it put in there in the first place. And again, doesn't justify the price increase. And his final tweet, which is probably the most interesting one, is like a movie ticket costs about $20 and gives you about 2 hours of fun, and no one's complaining about that, which is quite an interesting point. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it stacks up. What are your sort of thoughts, Jack, on sort of this retaliation?
I mean, it's hard to judge, isn't it? Because they're not going to come out on Twitter and say, you know what, mate, good point, fuck our company, it's rubbish. But I just feel bad for EA. I know this is going to sound awful because, fuck EA, they're terrible. But I do feel bad for the people who work there, because imagine you've been given Star Wars license. You've been told to remake Battlefront. So gamers are expecting a good Battlefront experience. But because you're EA and DICE, they're also expecting a AAA experience. So they, are clearly rushing this game out to make money on it. And in there, I truly believe is a good game. I truly believe that if with a lot more time and more content and a proper update to the engine, it'd be good. But at the end of the day, it's just not right, to charge that much money for whatever they're going to give. I spent about the same amount of money on Fallout New Vegas when that launched, Collector's Edition. In fact, probably much less, so about 70, 80 quid. So yeah, around the same as the Ultimate Edition for Battlefront. And I got a physical copy. I got a hardback, really nicely printed comic, which had prequel story, had like these really nice in-game poker chips, a vault coin, playing cards, a making of documentary, and then the game itself and some in-game stuff like a silent sniper rifle, blah blah blah. And that, I felt like that was good value for money. I had physical stuff, I had cool stuff, I got stuff in game, and I had a nice little collector's edition. This Ultimate Edition just feels like we're going to charge you the same price as the game itself again to not rip you off later individually for the map packs.
So just to put into perspective there as well, I mean, what we're not getting. So if you compare, so I got a nice little list here of like stuff that's in Battlefield. Sorry, in Battlefield, surprisingly, in Battlefront and 3 and which wasn't in the previous game. So in the previous game they had 30. So the previous game cost was actually $50 when it came out, and this was years ago. Now it was 2005, the first game came out. So they had 33 total maps, and that was 16 planets, and they had 4 DLC maps. So for Battlefront, we get eight maps, and with 4 planets. So the original one, there was 32 versus 32. In this one coming out, there's only 20 versus 20. We know on launch there's going to be no space battles. It's not moddable. There's no single-player campaign, which there was in the original. So in the original game, for the infantry types, which maybe as games have moved on, people do want this type of stuff simplified. There was 51 playable infantry types with 6 standard classes per faction, 8 faction classes and 19 playable hero units. From what we know, there's been only loadouts, so you can only really pick from really a select few, as opposed to customizing what your character can do. And we aren't really sure of the number of heroes yet. There were 37 controllable vehicles in the original game and 15 controllable turrets. So far, I'm not sure whether we're getting near that. Again, if you're a big Star Wars fan, the classical, in the original Battlefront game, you could play the classical and the prequel eras. In the new Battlefront game, we're only going to be able to experience the classic, I think. So it's it's a bit different, I think. It's definitely not like what we expected, and I'm not sure whether we can see. I'm not sure what we should expect really from this game. Have they done it right? It's definitely not a Battlefront game, and I can see why people are sort of annoyed by it a bit.
But you say we weren't expecting this, but I mean, really, I think if you've been following the games industry, we kind of were expecting this. Battlefield 3 came out a mess. Like, that game was unplayable when that came out. And when it got sorted, yeah, it was a good game. Then Battlefield 4 came out, and it was just Battlefield 3.1, essentially. And that was a mess again. And then there was loads of controversy with the premium, and that especially after the controversy in premium before. So I think people... And then Hardline, again, just... It felt like Payday, but by Battlefield. And I think people really were expecting Battlefront outside of really, rabid Star Wars fans. Because I've got friends who don't play Battlefield, love Star Wars. They get in this game. They love it. They're so hyped because, they hear the blaster sounds and the AT-ATs walking past shooting and, they're fangirl until they die. But for me, it's just not a good enough game. And I wasn't expecting it to be, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've got a bit to see, sort of like, how it will go, whether it comes out as a mess or not. DICE's reputation's a bit mixed, but then again, like EA have, people are still going to buy it. If someone pays this much for all the different content, then, can we really complain? I think for me the thing is, like with consumers and specialists, it's if consumers were sort of had all the details and knew everything about the game that, say, someone who looked into it most knew before it came out, would they make the same buying decision? I think if you maybe did look at all the stuff before it, and you wanted to buy it as a sequel, then maybe people wouldn't buy it. But then again, it's a different game, and if people want to play it and people are happy to pay that, then nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen.
They were never going to take a risk, were they? Really, like it's just too much money involved in the project. No matter how much artistic integrity you have, it's a real big gamble to take a license like that and build a new engine while trying to keep Battlefront series fans happy, Star Wars fans happy, general gaming fans happy, and DICE fans happy. It was never going to happen.
Who should they have focused on? I think Star Wars fans. I think making a good single-player campaign would be brilliant. That's because that's what people want.
The Battlefront single-player campaign itself wasn't exactly like, you know, an incredible cinematic experience. It was just, you're in the maps and you have to do these objectives. It wasn't. I mean, I guess it wouldn't have been hard to put in this one, but I don't. Was it like, you know, a big part of the game? Was it not just the battles themselves?
It was like the story. So you played as a clone trooper. You know, you fought through all the Clone Wars. You know, and you got this different perspective from someone who had to actually go through all the side story. It was like one of those plots. It was what the Force Awakens, not the Force Awakens, Force Unleashed did. So what they did is they made the games right in between all the key films, and then if you played through the first to the end, then you got to see like all this really interesting detail and plot stuff that happened between the games, and it was like brilliant because I think that's what Star Wars fans like as well. You know, they had the first 3 films, and then the second 3 films slowly all tied it in. So it's nice to see all these little gaps in the Star Wars universe getting filled up, and that's what as well made it good. It was the story. You know, it was being able to see the story from a different perspective, and it was a fun multiplayer game. You know, with this, there's none of that. And it takes away a bit of the magic a bit. So I guess we'll see when it comes out how many people do buy it. I don't think I'm going to buy it really. Are you? Are either of you?
Not a launch, but I have to say it did look and sound really good. So if they can add a lot of content to the game to the point where I think it's worth a full game price, I probably will get it because you know, you don't really get these AAA cinematic, really good-looking experiences anymore. I think it's quite rare for that. I don't know. I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm not getting it launched, but I'm not saying no yet, if that makes sense.
Multiplayer by itself isn't enough to sell a game to me. It's even if it wasn't Star Wars, or even if it's a franchise, not saying it's not Star Wars, if it was a franchise I actually really enjoy, I still probably wouldn't go for a multiplayer-only game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think for me, without a single player campaign is high. And to be honest, like the price per game for what you get in it is just like ridiculous. There's like, you're basically paying for something that's really nicely polished. Maybe one day it will be better. They should release a single player campaign. If they release it on the
DLC.
On the DLC, and with their season pass, that'd be pretty interesting.
I
don't think they will.
I don't think they can win from where they are now.
No.
PR-wise.
No.
So, having a look at the chat, there's a lot of debate on processors going on.
Processors, yeah.
Well, i5 overclocking is what I have mine, so yeah, it says 3.5 there, but I overclock it to 4.3, and that does me very well.
I've always thought about overclocking and sort of tinkering my PC a bit, but like, it plays everything.
The problem is when something's not optimized well, when you get a memory leak, the computer just goes nope and shuts down.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So moving on to our next story. So another thing that sort of hit people quite recently is Steam. So back in April, Steam launched paid mods through Skyrim. But after sort of a few days, there was a massive community backlash to Bethesda and Valve for trying to put this into it. And people really felt like they were paying for stuff that they already got for free. So recently, in an interview with Eric Johnson, who is actually one of the key business people at Valve, he said, to quote him directly, that we're willing to take risks, but sometimes we're just wrong. We definitely screwed up in the details last time. If you look back specifically at the Skyrim situation, while it wasn't our intent, it was really easy to read it as, remember that thing you love? You pay money for that now. It was an awful plan. It was a terrible plan. I think the magnitude of the reaction was also like, did Valve just turn evil on us? We think we didn't, but we can see how it got miscommunicated that way. So for me, I think with mods, it's really, really difficult because they've always been a free way to change a game you want to, and you don't have to worry about things. When you're paying for stuff and you're getting stuff, there's a level of service you're expecting. But I think with mods now, typically they're just stuff people are making on their own time, and people don't generally expect to be paid for them. One of the main things, the issues were originally, was that people were selling mods that were also bundled with free mods. So when you have the mod, people would install the mod, you'd also have another couple of mods installed, and those creators wouldn't get any money at all from it. The other thing is, if you're paying for something, why would a modder generally have to update it per patch? So with Skyrim, as the game updates, some of the mods typically stop working. So, is it when you're paying money for something, does that then put more responsibility on the people that are paying to produce more, to actually put time into updating it every patch? And then the third thing is that there was no sort of structure. There was no structure around it, so people weren't getting paid for everything. It's quite a difficult thing to do, and I'm not sure whether, because it is so complicated, I'm not sure whether it's something you can actually charge people for. So I guess, Rob, as a developer, first, what do you think of sort of being able to pay for mods? I mean, I guess there's no argument that developers and people making content arguably shouldn't be compensating for their time they're spending on things.
It's a really broad subject. I don't think there's sort of a right answer, because the problem being is that, yeah, the developer deserves to be paid for what they're doing, but then modders tend to do that out of fun. They might have been doing it for a long time. They might not have ever imagined that they'd be getting any sort of value come back for the time that they've spent. The value was the project itself. Some people might want to make money. The whole Gary's mod thing was obviously a very successful example going paid. But then you've also got to consider things like you're going to have to allow certain things to be chargeable if it's completely original content. But how do you work with things where people might just want to play with the Mario hammer in Skyrim, but that's a Mario hammer? Can you charge for something owned by Nintendo to be used in a Skyrim game? Are they going to be allowed to charge, or are they going to be stopped? Or who do the rights go to? Where do you sort of take that thing into consideration? So it's going to open a lot of different questions, I think, if it does come back.
There was the GTA thing on top of Reddit this week, which is that you can get the Hulk now in GTA, so you can run around and pick up trains and throw them and stuff. But you couldn't charge for that. If you charge that, is it Marvel will just go mental? They're going to sue the shit out of you. And but then probably should.
The thing is, does that mean, because there's the Hulk, you've got Iron Man, you've got Superman in GTA, and people are putting time into doing that because, again, they want to, and it's their free time. And if this paid mod thing came in and there were restrictions, you had to perhaps declare whether it is original IP or someone else's IP. Is that going to stop modders going, well, I could have fun and I could put Iron Man into this and people want me to do that, but I'm never going to make money. Everyone else is making money. I'll come up with something else. So then all of these types of mods that people have gotten used to and started enjoying, are they going to decline because people are going to start seeing it purely on a sort of monetary value of doing it?
I think mods do. I think I'm always really skeptical when money has to start coming into art and development. And I think arguably mods and stuff like that is just people's interpretations of games and what should be added in. And in a sense, that is art. And when you start putting money to stuff, exactly like you said, will people just start not putting any effort into them and start focusing on the stuff that does cost money? And as a result of that, we'll definitely see a lower in the quality of mods that we're getting. So, Jack, do you think that's sort of right? How would you go about it if you had to? I mean, is there a problem to even fix?
I think, to me, there's two types of mods. There's your silly whatever mods like Mario Hammer in Skyrim, or being like Iron Man in GTA. But then you have full conversion mods. I mean, Dota started as a mod. That now is a full paid game. DayZ started as a mod. And these games, they were mods, free, made by someone, but these people spent years of their life, gave up their jobs, were scraping together just to build this, to create a fresh gaming experience. And I think that there should be some way to reward these creators, people who spend their lives building something that is almost a game unto itself, or a full conversion. The problem, I think, is that free mods are a huge part of the attraction to PC gaming, and that's the accepted culture. And I think it's hard to tell people, oh yeah, you used to be able to just go mod your game as you please, but now we're going to start charging you for it. But yeah, it all comes down to, will the quality improve if there's money to be made? There's no regulation for mods, is there? There's no council that makes sure the money's going to the right places, or that the IPs aren't being infringed and all that stuff. And like everything, I think it's just going to be one of those things that consumers in particular need to be vocal and active about it, to make sure that if it happens, it's happening for the benefit of gamers and content creators.
I think as well, a good point someone mentioned in the chat was that people, they do necessarily make money. So they put their mods on YouTube, they get ad revenue through that. As a developer, it helps build your reputation. So potentially they are making a bit. Whether that's enough to cover the development or something, I don't think that's necessarily going to do that. People do it for their CVs, for like job applications, so they can just look better. But yeah, I don't know. I think because of the creative freedom around it, should there be charged and should there not be charged mods? Maybe there's probably space of both. And if watching that Hulk GTA 5 game, I haven't bought GTA 5 on PC yet, but it's basically free marketing using lots of different brands, properties to do that. And it's I think it's something money could potentially ruin, and I think bringing them paid in does actually go against like the PC community and things like that. So I'm actually going to say I'm really against charging for them. I think if people want to charge them, they will charge them through their own ways. But I think to introduce it to Steam, it's a good way to make money. But I think there'd be too much negative impact around the creativity, and it would limit people to what they can do. If you have to support a mod through 6-7 patches, then you're screwed.
I've also just sort of considering things like torrenting. I think it might bring an influx of people torrenting mods now to get around other people having to pay for them when maybe they don't agree with it, because that's not really a concern at the moment. I don't think there's many people going, oh, if I make this, will it be torrented? Will people be downloading it illegally? Because there's no reason it's free. You can get it anywhere. But once you start doing that, I think that's going to open that gate as well. I was also considering, like, at the moment where you've got so many public funding type schemes around, you've got Kickstarter, which obviously wouldn't work for mods, but you've got things like Patreon as well, where you can ask people for money on a monthly basis. PayPal payments can be given for anything now, so you can put that on your website, on a link on Nexus for the mod sections and stuff, so people can donate if they want to. It's just, I mean, I've seen other game developers, really very small indie game developers, not really providing content, not giving people anything on a monthly basis, but just being given sort of a Patreon allowance because people like their style and they want to see them carry on, hopefully make their next mobile game or their next sort of small Steam game. So there's no reason for modders not to put themselves across Patreon, see if people are interested, and get a small income or revenue coming that way, because that is out there for them at the moment if they wanted to try and approach it that way.
It's interesting in the chat, so people are talking about how many subs do you need to make money on YouTube? And I think people are saying, someone said 4 million subs at least. I think you can make a living from it with a bit less than that. I mean, obviously we put everything we do on YouTube, so we don't get anywhere near enough views yet to get anything that we could consider a living. But I think it's definitely something growing. If you look at stuff like Twitch as well, maybe for developers it isn't the same, but the streamers definitely get quite a bit, or some of them do, like PewDiePie, what did he earn, 4 million last year, but he's like the biggest basically.
He lives near me.
He's what?
He lives right near me.
PewDiePie?
Yeah.
Really?
He lives in Brighton.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Alright, shit. You should
there you go.
You should
go say hi. Hey PewDiePie,
Yeah.
I'm also on the internet occasionally. Let's be friends.
If we got his audience for like a minute, we'd probably make enough money to, I don't know, buy a Kit Kat or something, maybe. We don't.
If we share it.
One whole Kit Kat.
One whole Kit Kat. Oh, we have to hit. Yeah.
Hashtags back, Rob.
No, let's ignore that. That's.
People do want to see Rob sing, don't they? Quite a bit.
About the
If
Valve
people
thing, though,
explain why, then.
I think you've
The
got the
Valve thing,
face of
them
a
getting money.
black soul, someone who can croon.
Don't have the voice.
You have the headphones to sing though. They're definitely a pop star's headphones with the random flashing and lighting
They
up.
just flash a little bit, that's all.
You look like a lighthouse.
All right. Apparently, I need to go get PewDiePie on the show, so I'll be back in like
no.
half an hour, guys.
What is he, just around the corner, isn't
Please
he?
don't.
Oh, you basically you have a drink down the pub with him, don't you? He's just like really near you.
Yeah, me and PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Me and Felix, me old lad. The Valve thing, I just thought though, what's interesting is that Valve used to be known as like quite a good company for helping small people. I mean, Portal was like that big story, isn't it? Oh, we were modders and Valve gave us the opportunity to make a full game.
Yeah.
But then you hear about the horror stories that follow. You hear about maybe they're not this amazing grassroots company, because guess what? They're an American company. So I think this paid mods thing is really their last chance to engender themselves with the public in general. I think after the Steam Greenlight controversies, after their like disputes with lots of indie devs, and then the paid mods last time, I think people are starting to get a bit hacked off. And then yeah, obviously, do I even need to mention the old Half-Life 3 thing? When's the last time they released a game as well, where people are wondering, where's Source 2? I think if this paid mods thing goes tits up, they're going to be in a real poor spot PR-wise.
I think for Valve as well, like their business model is selling games on Steam and taking a cut of that. That's like their safe thing. To make games is pretty risky. Like it's really hard to make money from games, and I can see why they stay away from that. But like we were giving EA quite a bit of shit before, but like Valve as well, like they need to make money, and they're gonna start putting in some stuff which is just like geared. I mean, paid mods will make them more money, and if you look at it that way, then for them there's no reason not to. I mean. It's interesting when you come to like corporate responsibility, whether it's like will we do this? Would it actually be bad? Will people get paid fairly? Yeah, I don't know. Half-Life. There should be a new Half-Life game, you'd think, but maybe there'd never be one because they couldn't possibly live up to the hype.
They could have just released Episode 3 though. I mean, we weren't like that. The whole point of the episodic content was small but frequent. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 comes out. It's really good. The story's really intense. It ends on a cliffhanger, and then Valve are like, just live with it. Just suck it up and get on with your lives. And look at Duke Nukem. Like when it comes out, it's not going to be good enough unless this game can literally marry me and clean my house for me. It is not good enough.
It's definitely yeah. No, it's a good point. I think I'd like to see more Valve games, but they're probably not going to take the risk now. They don't have to take the risk. They don't have to do anything. They're sort of comfortable sat in their own little their game shop bubble. And
it would be nice if they could get just one game, Half-Life, to its sort of third iteration. They always. I know that they have this thing of getting stuck at 2, but just one trilogy would be good. And I mean, I kind of like Valve for that they haven't done the Ubisoft let's make Assassin's Creed 99. And then make another 3 this year as well. They have done that in a small amount, but good quality, which is nice. But they've done it to the other extent, where they've made 2 really good games in most of their different series, but then they've just stopped when people actually want more, which is just bizarre.
So in the chat, so Tismo just made a really good point that publishers need to start to understand that recycling old titles necessarily doesn't generate them profit. And that sort of, I think that brings it quite interesting. So if you look at Assassin's Creed Syndicate now, which has come out, if you look at the reviews for it, like some people are giving it 4 out of 10, some people are giving it like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. I don't think with Assassin's Creed Syndicate I'm going to be that surprised at what I get. But is that a bad thing? Is that right? I think someone else now is saying it's a sense of nostalgia that people get for when they play the game. But I don't know if I get nostalgia when I'm playing Assassin's Creed. I mean, I definitely enjoy it and I know what I'm getting. But yeah, I think it's easy to be harsh or stuff like that and say, reusing games and remaking stuff isn't necessarily the best way to go about it, but it sort of maybe is what people want.
True, but then after a point, it has to update. If you liked Assassin's Creed 2 so much, if you guys liked COD 4 so much, well, you as in general, the people who buy these games, then play that. Like, I want to see an Assassin's Creed updated. The gaming industry is constantly evolving and moving. New technologies, new ways to present games and narrative. And why can't we incorporate this into Assassin's Creed? So, Assassin's Creed, for instance, to me, the idea of that was the free running and, stealthing through crowds and really planning in a smart way how I take down people. But now it's just become your climb up your buildings and see the map and get your bits around the map and loot bodies, and it's the same game system still, just with fluff on it. And you look at like the difference between I don't know, like Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 3. To me, that's the kind of advancement a game series should make. You still have the core gameplay experience there, but updated with new technology, new graphics, new systems, more customization,
So I think it's a bit harsh as well. So if you look at Assassin's Creed, if you look at Black Flag that came out, there's been 9 Assassin's Creeds on consoles since it started from 2005. So they've made about 1 a year now, I think. But you look at Black Flag, they've completely added in a new boat system. For the next one, it's maybe not as different. There's a real interesting program I watched, and they're talking about the different features of Black Flag. Of Syndicate. So now, rather than having to climb up buildings, you have a hook shot, and you can just shoot up a building and climb and do that instead of having to climb up it, which in a way takes away from part of, like you said, you thought the point of Assassin's Creed was to be able to free climb. So that now cuts out a load of free climbing, because now you just hook shot up buildings, so you don't have to worry about climbing up them. But again, I think keeping a universe alive and putting it in different time zones, and if people keep buying it, if people keep want to play it, then I don't think it hurts anyone. If they keep making money, they're not going to stop making them, and it's going to be people like me buying them and enjoying them. I think it's almost like horror films, isn't it, where they did 8 or 9 sequels and then everyone ends up hating them. But some of these games just aren't. I don't think they're really getting as old as they should be.
I disagree, but I kind of hope that at some point people start taking on my mindset to some extent, where if I see Ubisoft have released something new, whereas originally I would go, oh, that's Ubisoft, I remember they made this 1 or 2 really good quality games, and I think, oh, it's them. What are they pushing out in 9 months worth of development now, and what flag system do they have in this, and what will I be climbing? Whereas now that's shifted over to if Bethesda release something, I do still have that good feeling about them, and I will sit there and go,
Bethesda,
I'm actually really interested to see what they've done. They've made 3 really good quality games in the series. I wonder if they're going to start something new.
Yeah, but let's be fair here. Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind is the same game with just a bit of a
No, Oblivion was a fantastic RPG. Skyrim is nothing like Oblivion. I loved Oblivion. Skyrim was just paper thin Oblivion.
They're all completely different, though, regardless of which one you prefer. They're all completely different, and they've all got a good several years between them that they've been working on it, trying to fit new mechanics in. What you said, Tim, about Assassin's Creed has changed because they've wedged a boat mechanic in. That is a perfect example where they could have went, let's not make Assassin's Creed for the second time this year. Let's make a game based around boat mechanics we've just came up with, and make a pirate game specifically aimed around this new mechanic we've got in mind. But they didn't. They just went, a little bit scared. People might not like it. People will still buy Assassin's Creed, though. Let's shove a ship in there.
But that's the thing, though. People, why not attach something? If you've got a new good idea and you've got an IP that sells that people are enjoying, why not attach new mechanics to it? I mean, I think there is a flip between, are they just releasing the same games? But I think with Assassin's Creed, I think it's more a question of taste, because Assassin's Creed games are still selling pretty well. People are still buying them. People are still looking forward to them. People are still playing them. So,
but I think that number of people is slowly going down every year. I think you can kind of tell people are getting bored of it. Reviewers are getting sick of it.
Well, the reviewers are split on it.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, some of them are still split, but at the moment, I'm hoping that can only get worse, and maybe we'll tell developers that they need to change what they do a little bit. Because what I'm thinking, with certain developers like Bethesda and stuff, is that if they make a brand new IP now, I would still be interested to know where they're going to take that, and I'd have some faith that the new game might not be BioShock, but it could still be really good, and I would be disappointed if they released another BioShock. I think, I don't know, it's just that sort of mentality which I think would be a bit better for the industry if more people had that, because it would kind of drive the developers to be a bit more creative on what they're coming out with.
I think it's lose-lose. I think if they start releasing new stuff and trying out new stuff and it doesn't work very well, so say they release another game with just that boat mechanic and it wasn't enough, then people are like, what's this boring stuff? Maybe they should have just put it in Assassin's Creed. And then if they do release another Assassin's Creed, then it's like, oh look, they're just releasing another Assassin's Creed. I think it's a bit of a lose-lose situation with whatever they do. There's always going to be people criticizing how they go about it. And I think just because they're on the 9th game now, I don't think that's necessarily I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think people are still buying them, people are still enjoying them. They should just keep doing it. I don't think there's a problem with it, really. But yeah, what did the chat think? A bit of a mix, I think. Yeah, you look at racing games, that's a good point. Racing games don't really change. People keep playing racing games. People want to play open world assassin games. It's similar.
But the Assassin's Creed games come out with such frequency that it's impossible to say.
It's one a year. No?
Yeah, sometimes 2.
yeah, it's too much. Call of Duty did the same. Battlefield's
Yeah.
doing the same. And honestly, I'd actually almost disagree with Rob. I used to be a Bethesda fan, but Skyrim, like that, really was just shiny oblivion. And because I don't tend to follow developers. I mean, obviously, I have my pet peeves. I come across people I dislike, but I found that I will just go by the game itself. So Battlefront, I don't like Star Wars, I don't like DICE, but I went into it with an open mind. There's a game that came out, the Alone in the Dark game. It was on the 360. It was a remake of the classic games. Really bad remake of the games. Like completely did not capture what those games are about. But I really enjoyed it. I don't like getting bogged down in politics all the time, and I think that often a bad company can make a good game, and a good company can make an awful game. And I'm just hoping that Bethesda, Fallout 4, come on boys, we got this.
Just looking at the chat as well, someone said AAA titles. Yeah, I stopped buying them and started to purchase indie games, which I know is Rob's main stance on innovation in games as we see it in the indie scene. But I think these games are doing well. It's like, I don't know, are there any movies that everyone hates? That's like Star Wars. Like everyone's hating on Star Wars, but everyone still watches it, and the majority of us love it. I think it's people like to call it a guilty. Is it a guilty pleasure that I like Assassin's Creed games? Not really. It's just something I enjoy doing. There's such a thing as guilty pleasures. Everything's just a pleasure, I think.
And it's only guilty if you feel guilty over it. I like Miley Cyrus despite listening to metal and being in a metal band. But whatever, that's.
You should feel
what I
guilty
like.
about that. That's pretty bad, man.
I don't at all, and you can't make me.
Miley Cyrus.
Ozzy in the USA is a catchy tune, and I love it. Fuck the haters. Leave Miley alone.
Bring on the haters. But yeah, some people talk about racing games as well. Like Dirt is a good game. I've been playing. Like Drive. I don't think I play. Yeah, Dirt Rally. All the Codemasters ones are still pretty good. I think racing scene isn't dead at all. Disagree with everyone in the chat who's saying that. But yeah, that's and racing games are quite easy to do graphics-wise because just speeding past everything. Like you don't have to do all the environments as pretty as you can because it's a bit easier, I think. But anyway,
Like me and you crash lots, and then they have to make the textures good look when I'm facing the wall with my car.
Constantly.
that's the good thing about Grid though. Like you reset now, so you got to do the race in one go, but you reset it. So you crash, and then you just go press the reset button, and it goes all slow motion, like when your car
Play the
builds
racing
up
games
behind you.
Burnout too.
Man, they're good. They're still good. Tiago likes Party in the USA as well. You've got one fan in the chat.
Yeah, that's my boy.
It's pre-trashy Miley.
What girl?
Are you a pre-trashy Miley fan, or do you like the trashy stuff?
Yeah, well, yeah, pre-trash. No, we don't want this weird psycho alien that she's turned into. Shitty electro music. I'm talking like Cowgirl, Time of Our Lives, Oh Baby. Let's feel some post-school vibes.
She was like naked, sat on like a wrecking ball, wasn't she, for a while?
She was.
God, Miley Cyrus. Eventually. Cool. Okay. So, I'd love to talk about Codemasters more, but I think we should move on. Yeah, Grid Autosport, good game. Really like that. But yeah, moving on. So, our next topic for today is something that's a bit different, a bit interesting. So, movie games. So, movie games have always been a bit of like a sore topic. Sometimes people hate them and they think they're rubbish. Sometimes, people love them. I think it's a really mixed bag whether you get a good movie game or not. And before we go there, I think movies are a great universe and a great thing to be able to adapt into games, almost like books. And there's recently comments from Peter Levin. So he works for Lionsgate, and he is the head of interactive ventures and games there. And he's trying to say now that the attitude that movie studios have to games is becoming a lot more different than what they were traditionally. So what Peter says is that he says the fundamental driver is that the economics can no longer be ignored. The interactive business at Warner Brothers did something like $1.5 billion in revenue last year. But the other dynamics that are happening, with the state of the games business, you have a type of engagement that you haven't seen before, whether that's free-to-play, mobile, social, tablet, DLC, licensed properties. There's sustainable long-term products that live on multiple platforms in multiple environments that didn't exist before. If you look at some of the top gaming properties that are out now, and even just entertainment properties, Grand Theft Auto and the last Grand Theft Auto game is actually the best, the property in any entertainment industry across all films that has made the most money. It's the only thing to ever make 1 billion, gross 1 billion, I should say, in 3 days, which is absolutely insane. It's the highest. It's basically, I think it broke 7 world records with all that when Grand Theft Auto came out. I'll go through them quickly. So it's the best-selling action adventure game, best-selling video game in 24 hours, fastest-selling entertainment property, fastest video game to gross 1 billion, highest grossing video game in 24 hours, highest revenue generated by any entertainment product in 24 hours, and the most viewed trailer for any action adventure game before. So I guess sort of bringing it back a bit to movie games. So Jack, sort of, what's your experience been with sort of movie games in the past? Do you play Spider-Man 2? That's a good one.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge comics fan. So if we're counting comic adaptions, I've played almost all of them, and Spider-Man 2 was really good. There's not been a good Spider-Man game since, and I've bought almost all of them on sale, but it still felt horrible. Like the Amazing Spider-Man tie-in was just basically Activision got their formula and put a Spider-Man suit on it and just farted that out. And the boss battles were essentially boiled down to quick time events. It all felt very cartoony.
What's the Activision formula?
Yeah, well, and I think the problem is that recently there's been no drive for movie tie-in games. You know, when I was a kid, I remember the Phantom Menace game. I really enjoyed that. GoldenEye, that is, yeah, like an incredible game. And the Arkham games, if you class them as a movie tie-in, you know, those games captured what was cool about the film and let you play through that. So Phantom Menace, what was cool about the film? Jumping around and lightsabers and being with Qui-Gon Jinn. Did that in the game. In GoldenEye, what was cool about that is the way he ran through all these levels with his cool silenced pistol, and it's really fast shooting. And the Arkham games, what's cool about the films is watching Batman beat the shit out of people, and in the games you beat the shit out of people. But then you get these games like King Kong, which are just, you can tell they were just rushed out to make a bit of extra money. There's no love or care given to the game. It's just rehashing the experience. That's the biggest problem, is when it just rehashes the film. Like the Mad Max game, I thought, while it wasn't as good as a game as I was hoping, the fact that it tied in as a prequel to the film added some depth to it and made it interesting to me as a fan of the universe.
Yeah, the Mad Max game was good. I think independently, I quite enjoyed the Mad. I don't know if I'd enjoy it without the film, but it was definitely like, it was a good game. With King Kong as well, I see what you mean. Did you see the new Godzilla game that came out as well this year on PlayStation? And it had like graphics that was like on a fucking PS2. It was like a massive pile of shit. But and as well, I think, so Rob, have you played, what are your like favorite movie games? Do you think that anything's changing or anything will change because there's all of a sudden lots of new platforms? Or you see, I'm a bit cynical to the point where they're saying, oh look, there's all these different ways people are making money, so we should probably get involved in that more.
I've never really enjoyed a movie game.
Never enjoyed a movie game.
From what Jack was saying about Spider-Man and stuff, I don't care much for comic characters or heroes in that way. I think that type of game might have been helped along by the fact that it had recognizable characters that people love. I think the mechanics of Spider-Man games are a little bit loose, and I remember playing them back on the GameCube, I think, maybe, and it was just different versions of punch, punch, kick, kick, punch, punch. And it was very sort of, everything was 3-button combos and very easy sort of games, which are not my cup of tea, but the people that really enjoyed them were the people like Jax's, who really follow the whole Spider-Man lore, know all of the backstory, love the characters and things like that. So I think in those situations they help sell the game. Then the other ones, like you said, like King Kong, which are just fundamentally terrible. I played Scarface, which was just so flawed. It was a horrible game, because publishers like that then claimed that the game's lacking things that the gamers expect because they're trying to keep it more realistic to the film world. It's like, that's great, but it's not a film. I want to play a game, and you've taken out the game mechanics, so just make another film. Batman, again, maybe really good, not my cup of tea, so I can't really say on that. But yeah, I've never.
You hate all games, Rob.
I love games, I do. I honestly do. But yeah, just not those. I've just never found a movie game that I enjoy, unfortunately. They're two completely different mediums. Films have got very strong structured stories, things you constantly have to focus on because they are the focal point of that film and they have a lot of meaning hidden behind them. Games, very interactable, hopefully driven by the player a lot more. They're just mediums that need to stop trying to compare themselves to each other and just get on with what they both do best, I would say, personally.
I'd agree with that, but to the point that I'd say that I think there can be sort of a bit of a Venn diagram with it. I think that you get these maybe films but don't work. Games don't really work as films usually. But I think a lot of films work as games. I think Star Wars have had good games and The Matrix has a bad games, and it all comes down to, are you providing an experience that only gaming can provide that fits the universe? And
Enter the Matrix, that was like a really good game. I enjoyed Enter the Matrix.
I don't know if that counts. The Force Unleashed games were good. I enjoyed those. That was quite a satisfying sort of mechanic that game had. I don't know if that ties in enough to count.
Well,
I think saying that stories and games films and games are different as a medium, is quite interesting. I think it really shows potentially to the lack of creativity, arguably, in like the games industry now. So, games mostly sort of have a linear story where you sit and watch cutscenes, and the action and what happens is mainly dictated, unless it's like The Witcher 3 or something with decisions, the action is mainly dictated by like what the plot wants you to go through. And I think, as well as the criticism of films, I think it's a fairly big criticism of games to say, like, nowadays, why aren't developers making stuff that involves a player and more? I mean, they're trying to make more decisions, but eventually, what people are making is still just sort of interactive films, which is, isn't arguably like putting to work what games can do best, which is making you the center of attention. And maybe, I mean, that's what we've got to look forward to. So with virtual reality now coming out, we've got people that are going to hopefully take the perspective of the player, and people are going to interact and talk to you with. And this new level of game design that's coming out could hopefully benefit everything across everything. I think because it should be you deciding how a story goes and what it does, and it's something we're really lacking at the moment in most modern games, I think. Maybe.
Chat seems to be talking about the World of War. Well, they've mentioned the World of Warcraft movie, which is interesting. I think that's the first time we're seeing it go the other way. And a lot
it's
of
going to
people
be bad.
They're mentioning the Lego games as just constantly the same thing, and the Harry Potter games as well. As pretty poor examples. And I think it's interesting that someone's TZZ has said Back to the Future PC game would be really cool.
There's a Back to the Future Telltale.
Someone's just mentioned Metro Last Light. Was that a film, or they were books?
That was a book that was adapted into a game, and that's the sequel.
That was really good.
That was incredible.
I don't think it's necessarily the problem is that people are adapting different properties into games. I think it's the attitude they take and the reason they go for it. So if it's a big film coming out and it's just an expansion of your marketing and to make more money, and that's very different to taking like an old film. Like making a Matrix game now, like I think someone could just make it if they let people access the properties more, then people would just
like the Matrix Online, you mean?
Is that coming out now? Is there a Matrix
that came out and that was dead before it even launched.
Matrix is brilliant for a game. We need another Matrix game. I'd love that.
When you mentioned VR just sent him, that was something I found worrying reading the article from the guy, the film producer who wants to get into games because that is where he sees money now. That is the worst possible way forward, is to try and make a kind of film-related experience in VR. Because films, like I've said already, everything is structured. They make sure you're focusing on the bit of the screen they want you to focus on, so you see what they want you to see at that specific moment.
Yeah.
When you're in a 360 world and you can look at whatever you want, whenever you want, you're going to miss everything they want you to watch, which means you're not going to get the point of their story. You're not going to get the bits that they value and think you'll value the most. I watched that trailer from Unreal, the bullet frenzy thing that they released, which is a really good trailer for VR. But that literally happened to me. I was watching, trying to see where everything was flying. There were cans going around me. There was buildings being just blown to pieces. and everyone was waiting for me to see the end bit, which was some epic robot about to fire in my face. But I just got focused on this can to the side of me. So when this funny thing was meant to happen at the end, I was watching a can, and everyone was like, "Oh, what do you think?" I was like, I didn't see that. There was a can rolling down the street with really good physics that I was focused on. Sorry. So I'll watch it again. But you kind of miss the bits which are sort of set up, and you can possibly not see them now. So, and I look like I'm in heaven.
I think when we talk about VR, we should put on the VR headset hats.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's like it's another part of design, isn't it? So yeah, you can't make someone you've got a headset on, you can't make someone look in a specific place. You can't make them, look where they want you to, and that's again another creative decision. It's like before we said about sort of games aren't necessarily doing what games do best. It's the same with VR now, which is coming out, where people don't really know still how to make VR stuff properly, and it's it's always evolving. It's there's a lot of I've been quite a bit of a criticism of like the games industry and what everything's doing now. Maybe we can all be far more creative and do far more interesting things, and people just aren't pushing out the boat with it. We need more money. We need lots of money, and
you can take the Alien franchise as a good comparison itself. You've got AVP, which came out, or Aliens, Colonial Marines, either way. Rushed, terrible, looks bad, felt bad, waste of money, completely just ripping off people like me who love the Alien franchise and will pay for anything for it. And then Alien Isolation came out, and that took the feeling of the first film and just created a game experience around it. Sneaking around this sci-fi place, cold, metal, dark hallways, the sounds of the alien chasing you, and you really feel like the prey, that kind of Amnesia style. And there you can see on Alien Isolation, they took the core experience of the film and used the game medium to introduce that to gamers. Whereas AVP, Aliens Colonial Marines, took the film looks and brands and just whacked it on a shitty FPS.
Yeah, we're definitely moving in the right direction. I guess with time, we'll only hopefully see stuff get better and stuff get a bit different as well. The chat seems quite interesting about this. So what have we got? Yeah.
And people were mentioning 360 YouTube videos and how, and also about Harry Potter memories, sort of going through that. And I think that could be quite cool if you had a small scene that had, like, because you said you focused on that can. Well, what if that can was part of the narrative? What if every little part of the scene was something else, and you could, go through it over and over again, and a kind of, Mass Effect playthrough, what's it gonna be next time, sort of thing. Could be quite cool, maybe.
Yeah, no, it is down to the developers and how they sort of make you concentrate your focus, but there's only so much you can do. I mean, the big mech robot thing I was meant to be looking at was directly in front of me for the whole video, so it's quite clear that that's what they wanted me to see at some point. But still, I was one of the viewers, maybe one of the few, I don't know, but one of the viewers that did get taken away by the can, which is the wrong thing to be taken away by.
Yeah.
I just think that might happen a lot, regardless of how good the developer is and how much time they put into trying to direct you. It's just adds a whole new dimension for things to go wrong and to get missed and to get overlooked.
I don't think in VR you can direct anyone really, because the idea of having a headset and being able to look where you want is the fact that you can look anywhere. And when you start forcing people to look in certain positions, you get rid of that thing. The one way that sort of we know how you can get around making people look in certain ways is using something called gaze cues, where you basically, where you're looking, you make action happen. But again, that involves like potentially someone looking in a specific point for a specific amount of time, which you still can't do again. And creatively, you can have different portions of the map that start doing stuff, but to get all that in sync and to keep that making sense no matter where you're looking is quite interesting. And that's still a creative challenge that like all developers and all game developers now, everyone making VR content is still trying to get through. And we're definitely not there yet. I don't know if we'll be able to work out how on this podcast. Maybe sometime. But
I think we're halfway there, boys.
Yeah, by the end of it.
We should become the Games Industry Council, and we can just comment on everything. And
I mean, if anyone's hiring, I'm right here. So
one day, when our YouTube channel gets big, then we'll be there.
I think VR. Chat's talking about VR a little bit still. And I think that when it comes to movie games, this is the closest we're going to get to combining the two, creating a medium that is, in between the two. So, I mean, for both you guys, as you work in the industry, do you think that VR opens up the market for movie tie-ins at all?
Yes. So with VR, there's generally like a couple of main markets. You've got the games industry. So people are going to buy Oculus Rift, people are going to buy HTC Vives to play games. And then the other side of it, you've got a lot of people now making 360 films. So if you watch like nature documentaries, David Attenborough made like the first 360 VR documentary for the Samsung Gear VR, which is this headset, which you put a Galaxy Note 4 in or an S6, and that's so there's definitely different areas. So people are making 360 films. So there's going to be people that want to experience VR that don't really want to play games as well. So I think the biggest mistake people make is they assume it's just for games, when really there's a lot more to it than gaming, just gaming practices. VR films are interesting, but again, I know VR film makers, and they say the one thing they can't do very well at the moment is get contextual action to happen, or if you have to rely on someone looking in a certain position in order to make the scene make sense, then that's the problem then, that you can't do that yet. Someone's mentioned VR for porn, which is being done at the moment. If you Google about, I'm sure you can find some. I haven't watched any myself yet, but yeah, when you talk about VR, that is a thing that people seem to mention like all the time. What do you think,
It's
Rob?
definitely something I'm interested in.
Porn or general?
Whatever gets your interest the most.
I was just talking, just looking at Tiz's comment there about how do you aim with things? Do you get crosshairs, or what happens if you move the mouse off the screen? And I was just going to say that it depends on how good the developer is. I mean, some of the best experiences you get are where they're just intuitive, so you wouldn't need a crosshair, but you know that if you look at something directly in front of you, maybe by previous experience in that game or experience itself, something would have moved, so you go, oh, okay, so if I'm centered my view and it's an interactable object, it will expand, or it will move closer to me, and that's what I was on about earlier on in this cast, is that that's the type of thing that just comes from good development, and making the most out of the virtual reality that you're in. So you have to stop thinking about things like mouse pointers and crosshairs. They don't matter in VR as much. You have to try and work out now what will work specifically in VR, not what can you drag from previous systems into VR. So you can have like a whole menu system around you, because that's now an option, and it would work quite well and look really cool in some situations.
So I think as well, it's a TZZ's Merc. I keep pronouncing his name different every time I see it. I might have to like settle on one. He says because the VR headset lets you move around, you can use your mouse for movement and stuff like that. There's actually, so for input in VR, we don't know how to do it yet properly. There's like no set formula. So using a gamepad controller, it really takes you out of the action if you're sat there holding all these big levers and you're just using a 360 controller or the keyboard and mouse. I mean, Oculus recommend that you should sit 5 meters away in order to experience it properly. And so the camera can get your tracking in all right. So with input, it's still a completely like new area. Like no one knows what the best ways to work in. I know Oculus, the keyboard and mouse, I don't think is going to be one of the key control schemes, just because you can't see your keyboard through your headset, and to like find it and struggle it with your hands is like a bit of a challenge. There's definitely everything to do with VR is really new, and there's still a hell of a lot to work out before all this stuff, and that's why potentially I think there could be a bit of a delay in VR coming out and becoming mainstream, because there's so much to work out still. Like people want haptic, people want to walk around, some people just want to look around. Like there's so many lines and there's so much tech coming together. If you look at the Kinect and how that uses motion tracking to work out where your body is. I mean, imagine that in VR. So you have the headset on and you have Kinect, which is picking up all your body, which you can see. I mean, that's not too crazy to think of. But again, to get that working and to get that working well with games, then to get feedback, there's still, at the moment, it's like there's just so much possibility with all this different tech that everyone's just trying to sort of merge it together. And then what we're going to finally come out with after like 2 or 3 years of this being consumer products is going to be, I think, something we probably none of us can expect, really.
I think the one that makes sense for me the most at the moment would be the Vive, with the two handset type things you get, your motion controllers. When you've got experiences like the job simulator, where you're in a small room and you're told to cook a soup, and you just pick things up, and it just has a one-to-one recognition with where your hands are, where the controllers are, and in the simulation, and you just go around this kitchen picking things up, and it just all feels so intuitive. You know how far you need to lean forward to pick up the ketchup and stuff, and it's really good. And sort of menu systems which you just flick your hand at and you sort of poke it, and again it just feels as though it should be there, and it is there, and it just makes sense almost immediately.
That's what I'm looking for, is a new way to interface with the technology, because I don't want to have. I think having a gamepad or keyboard and mouse would just bring me straight out. I want gloves. Yeah. I want a bodysuit, a treadmill. Like, I want to run around the world and be able to pick things up. And that what you're talking about there, like the Iron Man style, menus or that sci-fi stuff. That's my wet dream right there.
So it's quite interesting what Diego said about people not liking drastic changes. And need to acclimatise to things. So that's true, but the very first time, if it's done well, the very first time you can try an experience, you can instantly acclimatise to it if it's done correctly. I've only tried the Vive a few times, and they have got it down to a T with some of the experiences they've made, that you see something and you don't go, oh, I wonder if that would interact, or I wonder how I get that to work. You just move your hand towards it because you think, well, in real life, if I put my hand there, something will click, and it clicks, and you're like, oh, it worked, and you just carry on then, and instantly that you're in that world, and you don't have to put as much thought into it. That's that stage.
I think one of the things with with the Wii controllers and stuff like that is they started taking, with gamers, you think the progression for controls would be to get more smaller movements that have a bigger impact, so more accurate joysticks, more accurate stuff. And really, we're seeing the opposite, where now to play a game, you're having to literally move your body around and swing and hit things. And that's it's a bit different to what we're used to. And even if you look at the trends of where gaming's heading with that stuff like that, it is massively different to what the market's done so far. So to give you a quick thing, so this is the Vive controller that you have. On this is a little trackpad. This sort of vibrates when you're walking around and touching things. And as well as hide the barcode. There's a trigger on the back here as well that you can press, and and the top things you see. It's almost like a Wii controller, but again, this is all one-to-one tracking, so you can see this as you're sort of moving around somewhere. I need to not show that barcode, but yeah, it's all interesting. It will be interesting to see how it all takes off, and whether VR does take off or not. I think we are hoping it will. But
Thiago said, remember the sea of controllers in the 90s, and I think that's a good point, is that we're probably going to get that, a bit of a overwhelming wash of random peripherals or doing different things. And I remember Rob, guys?
Remember him?
I mean, not this Rob, unless you're leaving us to Rob.
I'm still here.
No, Rob the robot, and the power glove and stuff, all of these things,
just power glove. People
didn't appreciate it, but you could also argue maybe it was too early for that. Maybe the tech wasn't ready.
Yeah. I mean, we still get that flood now. I think we've gotten used to it. You've got the Wii controllers, just completely different.
We've got the Steam controllers.
Kinect, the PlayStation Move. That they've carried on, sort of making random stuff like that. But yeah, just people.
With the exception of the Wii. With the exception of the Wii, they haven't actually taken away their old control system, if that makes sense.
No, everyone else has been a lot more, not as confident, I suppose, as Nintendo were.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our last story of today. Thanks for sticking with us, if you have. So, the final thing we want to get onto is a bit away from games, but still sort of on a similar topic. And we want to talk about sort of YouTube's new gaming station, which we are actually streaming on right now, and sort of what this could potentially mean for Twitch. So with the recent announcement from YouTube Gaming from our Google overlords now, and I know Google are in the top left corner or the right corner, I can't tell which one here. So they've recently announced that they're going to allow live streaming from mobile phones. So you can basically now go on your phone as you're on the bus, you can plug in your mic, and you can now stream and do Let's Plays on mobile games, whether that's Angry Birds. And on that, you can play and stream your mobile games, which is a bit different to Twitch as well. They're trying to make it a lot more simple, so you can just press go live and to get it happen. And they've also introduced a new subscription service called YouTube Red, where it sort of works like Netflix and Spotify. So you pay a certain amount, and if you pay that, you don't have to see any ads on YouTube, and you also don't have to see you can also access exclusive content. So I know PewDiePie, who Jack, who lives near you, will be making some exclusive content for it, and there's also College Humor, who are apparently still making videos and around. They're also going to be doing some exclusive content for it as well. And it's definitely an interesting turn. With obviously, arguably, the diminishing advertising revenue creators are getting now from making games, it's interesting to see whether this is a good move for content creators and a good move for YouTube, or whether it's just potentially putting up a paywall. So I guess if we go first, so if we start with sort of Jack, are you looking forward to watching people Let's Playing Angry Birds on their bus on their way to work in the morning?
I can't say that I'm interested in watching people play Rovio games or anything of the like, but it was interesting because I was just about to say how I really enjoy watching streams, and it's really interesting to see that in chat that people find it a bit strange that you would do that, but I think it depends on the game. League of Legends is the reason I watch streamers usually, and horror games, and it's kind of the same for both. I watch the League of Legends players stream on Twitch because they are so good at the game that I can learn from the way they play, the way they manage their skills, the way they make decisions. And horror games, I like watching other people play them because then I don't have to cry like a girl, and that's better for me and better for anyone who's over at my house. And I think that people are interested in doing the same. I think, especially with horror games, I think there's a huge market for people watching interesting personalities play through games. The reason people loved couch co-op was because you'd be with your friends and you'd be interacting in an interesting way with what you're watching. And I think this YouTube streaming stuff is simulating that, is opening up to the YouTube audience that idea of that you can watch someone who is funny, who is presentable, who is personable, play a game, and it's like, they're with you. You're not depressingly alone, guys. It's all good. And I think that YouTube, as such a big juggernaut, is going to really shake up the streaming industry and really push it out into the limelight.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Do you watch many streams, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like Jack, so I can't quite see why people don't understand the concept. I don't do it for the same reason, maybe. I've watched Let's Plays of games where perhaps I missed the game the first time it came around, but I wanted to play, for instance, Witcher 3 recently. I was almost tempted to pick that up, but I tried playing Witcher 1 and it was horrendous, so bad. But there's Let's Plays of it, so I could watch other people go through that ordeal. I could get the story in case the backstory was important, and then I could pick up the next games. So I've done it for that sort of reason. The whole mobile streaming thing, though, I mean, I've watched a few people. Markiplier's mobile games were quite amusing, but that was because of his reactions and just his general sort of his charisma. But like someone said in the stream, I can't imagine I'd sit down and watch someone play Crossy Roads or Clash of Clans. It's just not interesting.
You see, I sort of agree. I'm on the flip side, though. I think it's all to do with the people. So when I grew up, I used to watch the Yogscast basically all the time. And the Yogscast are actually just down the road from us, Jack. They're in the Yog Tower, not too far from our studio where we're calling from today. And nice. I used to love their stuff because I used to listen to their podcast, and they used to just chat. Like, they just talk about nothing for hours, and it was quite funny. And they started off making like World of Warcraft videos where they just like do bosses and just mess about, and then they moved on to their Minecraft stuff. And for me, a lot of the dynamic was just them interacting with each other. So you've got Lewis and Simon. Now they've got like a million other people that do it as well. And I think it's really to do with the people who are streaming it. It's almost when I watch them, I'm watching the game, but I'm more watching it for the people talking about it and interacting with it. And for me, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone's like that, if it's you're just watching for the people. Because like when people say they watch League of Legends and stuff, like I don't watch Let's Plays for games. I watch it for the people playing the games, and I just like games alongside that. So for me, it's something that I find quite entertaining. But I don't really know whether that's sort of like a traditional way to approach it, or that's how everyone else is. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. People just enjoy watching people talking shit and playing games and being funny. Maybe.
I think a lot of the time it's down to personality. Yeah, that's definitely what's kept me engrossed in other sort of Let's Plays or general streaming. I suppose it'd help as well because I know a lot of people who really subscribe to these sort of YouTubers and things. They get a bit annoyed if someone doesn't have time to stream for a week or hasn't done a full cast. They just seem to want that small fix of the video.
I know the
So I
hate mail we
suppose,
get when we don't do a video.
yeah, no,
You
it's
should see.
terrible,
Yeah,
scary
people
stuff.
riots on YouTube. The comments,
Um,
oh my god.
but I suppose they can kind of sort that out a little bit. They can just say, well, I've not got time, I'm on holiday, or I need to be away for a conference this week. But every now and again, I'll do a 10-minute stream of this, make some funny reactions, do my normal stuff, and I'll put that on for you. I suppose that might placate people a little bit every now and again.
I think usability is key. I think that how well and how important this YouTube streaming service ends up being comes down to how usable and accessible it is. Because I think Twitch is a little bit outdated. I think the UI feels a little bit clunky. I think the site is quite hard to navigate around as a first-time user. And I think YouTube is very open to new users, set up to be easy to use. And I think that in all likelihood, when they release it, it's going to have a really nice interface, be really intuitive. And I think they're going to, through that, encourage a good competition. I mean, it's weird though. I thought they were already partnered with Twitch, through streaming and stuff. So are they going to work in tandem? So will YouTube and Twitch work together, or is YouTube looking to take the market for itself completely?
If YouTube just made Twitch but on YouTube, do you think YouTube would win?
I think they would, yeah. I just think it's YouTube. Everyone goes to YouTube. I use YouTube. If you want to show someone a video, first thing you check is YouTube. It's the Google for videos, which ironically it literally is now.
Yeah.
Don't annoy the Google overlords that we have to appease. We have so much Google in this. We're doing it on Google Hangouts, on YouTube. We have their logo in the corner. Like,
Senpai, please.
Don't cut us off there, please.
I think what worries me about the YouTube thing is the subscription side of it. It's happening across the whole media industry, this subscription stuff, and I think it's kind of cheeky in a way, because to me it seems like as a really clever way to get more money out of people than they would spend. So say I wanted to get rid of ads on a program, I spend like 10, 20 quid. But if they're like, oh no, you don't do that, instead give us, a few quid every month, it's nothing. After a while, you just forget about that. You set up to direct debit or to automatic transfer or online, PayPal, and then it just ticks away, and you get enough people doing that. World of Warcraft, for instance, made its money entirely off subscriptions, essentially. And I'm paying for Netflix, Spotify, like Amazon Prime, and I think it's getting really hard to keep track of where the money's going. And I think it's quite scary when YouTube, which was primarily a free video service, even when the ads came in, my friends, people, the internet really pissed off, because we were like, we came here because you didn't have ads, because you were free, and now they're turning it into ESPN HD or whatever, and it's just, I don't agree with it necessarily.
Do you think that if we should go completely pay to view? So we went on YouTube Red Service, and we'd have like the exclusive content. I don't know. I think people would watch this. I think we do quite well. But as well, there's different ways to look at it. I think with ad revenue is dwindling every year. For obvious reasons, people are seeing less ads, people are making less money from it, and it comes back to hit the people making the content. So to do this show, to do this every week, this is just us doing it out of our own time almost. It's like we don't make enough to do that, initially. But in order for like websites to sustain, for people to keep doing stuff like this, you need to have a cash flow, or you can't spend the time to develop this stuff. And everything people make will only be half as good as people who can spend their whole time doing it and putting effort and money into making something that is actually worth using. It's interesting to see whether this is the beginning of like a paywall for the internet. So like eventually, say in 10 years time now, when we'll be like, oh, look at all that stuff we had for free, look at all those ads we used to see, and give it 10 years now, and it's like, oh no, now we have to pay for everything because none of us watched any of those ads. And then they were like, oh, how did we get away with that so long? Because people are making less money. People are just going to stop making stuff, or people are going to try and find different ways to monetize it, which is probably going to be the more obvious route. I think we're moving towards, if we're slowly cutting off the revenue streams of things that we're arguably taking now for free, then it's going to force anyone who's like trying to make a living off just making content and making online stuff to have to basically completely change the way they work. You know, the internet isn't going to be free for much longer because no one can afford to do stuff for free, basically, I think. Disagree? Agree? Maybe?
I disagree. I think that you can't force people to pay for something. We're already paying for the internet to our ISPs and to have a router and to have a computer and to have, maybe antivirus and stuff. And I think that, yes, stuff needs to be paid for. And yes, content needs to be paid for. And when that's appropriate, so on YouTube, you can pay to watch films. No one's bothered by that. That's all good. But if you're saying to people, pay us $10 a month or have a subpar viewing experience, because that's what it comes down to. Is this YouTube subscription experience going to be at the detriment of the normal YouTube user? And if yes, that's not acceptable. The whole point of the internet is as a free, open, flowing place of information. And I don't think paywalls should be constructed to hold people back and punish them.
I think you have a sense of entitlement there that isn't actually there. So, like, why should you be able to watch everything on YouTube for free? You know, Google don't have all these servers everywhere. They're not done this. They're not a charity. They're not doing stuff for free.
I suppose Google are pretty short on money, though. To be fair.
But it's not.
Or Google.
Like, you're not gonna get anywhere. Like, no one. If no one made any money from anything, you wouldn't have the internet. You wouldn't have YouTube. You wouldn't have Google. And if people are taking stuff for free, then and they're not giving stuff to you for free. They're giving stuff to people to watch it with ads and to watch it so they can make money from it, so people can keep affording to make this content. I mean, yeah, Google are massive now, but take a gaming website. So say I set up a website and I had ad revenue and I started building it for free, building it myself, and then I got to a point where I could go and then, give away. I got to a point where I could quit my job and I was making enough money. And then across that time, say people started blocking all my ads on my site, then I couldn't make anything, then, what am I to do? I can't afford to keep this going. I can't afford to keep this doing. So everyone loses out because that's the problem. It's not free. Nothing's free. You have to pay through some way. Either that's through ads or either that's through that. And if people start cutting out everything, then no one's going to make any money and no one's going to be able to produce it or make a living doing it. And that's the problem, I think. Nothing, and there's no sense of entitlement. Just because it's free now, it's not free, it's for ads. And if people cut that out and they stop making money, then, just because people have an internet connection doesn't mean that you can just go and watch everything for free and have everything for free. That doesn't entitle you to anything. Just because you're not directly
paying. I do agree with the entitlement thing, and I do think myself and people often do get quite entitled, but at the same time, I wasn't the one who went around and said, I want a free video streaming service. That was just provided for me.
It's not free.
Well, I know, but what I mean is that I can go to YouTube and I don't pay any extra money, and I can watch videos on there. I'm not bothered by ads personally because I can just zone them out. But I think there has to be a point made that why is it always the consumer and the user who is, being made to watch the ads? Why can't there be a monetization that benefits both user and content creator? I think that. Often these subscriptions are good. It's not that I hate subscriptions in general, because Netflix, I pay them £10 a month and I get a great service out of that, and I'm really happy with that. My point is that I think often, for instance, Xbox Live, the paying thing comes massively to the detriment. They say to you, if you don't pay, you can't use this well at all. League of Legends is free, but they make so much money off, obviously, their esports, but the cosmetics. And cosmetics don't affect anything in game. It doesn't affect the free users. Me having my character look different doesn't create a detriment for the free users. And if your product is established to be free initially, I think you have to be really careful. And obviously, it sounds like I'm reading the tea leaves and making predictions. I don't think it's going to be bad. I don't know. I have no idea. That's just my worry.
I think Jack's mentioned two really good examples there as well, though. I think part of the problem is that, so he mentioned first of all, the one thing he does pay for is Netflix. Now that never started out as a free service, to my knowledge. You've always known going into that right, I'm paying X amount per month and I get these shows will be included and I can watch it whenever, wherever, however I like. LOL has always been free, but they've made a clever way to monetize off of it. I think it's down to the developer to choose whether they start something off in a certain payment structure and then how to take that forward. And if they don't charge for it, like LOL, then it's down to them to come up with a clever way to monetize off of it which doesn't affect the user. Now, what YouTube have done is they've started off as a free service. Maybe they've included ads, and then they've suddenly just changed it to say, well, actually, we've decided we'd like a little bit more money. How about you just pay us for the same thing you used to get for no extra charge? So they're completely changing the structure that they've begun with, which is not what people were used to or expecting. It's not an entitlement thing. But if I was given a free game and then told, actually, we thought it would be okay to make it free, but we now can't pay our employers, just give us some money to carry on playing the game, I'd be pretty peeved because I had picked it up under a certain sort of pretense or expectation, and then they've decided to change that.
So I think everything you just said was absolute bullshit. So I think completely disagree. So League of Legends, yeah, it's free, but they've got a monetization model that that basically had the fact that you pay for assets, you pay for things, and that worked for them, and they kept making money. That's fine. If people stop buying them, they're going to have to start charging because they can't keep a game going off nothing. Netflix did start off as £10 a month. At the beginning of the internet, there was an ad blocker. We didn't have ad blocker at the beginning. So when people started making websites and making money through ads, that was how it worked. But because of ad block software, now basically everything has changed. And it's not. And now because of that, people can't make money to do stuff, and now they have to adapt. If everyone had it installed and no one could see any ads, then YouTube are just going to absolutely crumble, I think.
Plenty of services have worked out how to stop ad blockers, though. If Spotify can stop people from using ad blockers, why can't YouTube?
But they're a subscription model.
They have to change. Yeah, they are. But if
YouTube,
you're not subscribing,
if YouTube
put ads on.
want to charge people to watch their content, then I think they're completely in their rights to. I don't think there's any problems with it, any issues with it. And if people think they're so entitled to getting free stuff and to watching free stuff, or they're actually not. It's like Facebook. You don't get Facebook for free. You give them all your data. They use that data to sell you stuff. Like nothing's free. And just because they're changing their model, I think it's completely different. If you get a game and it's free and they ask you to pay for the game you've already been playing for, that's fine. YouTube isn't like that. YouTube's constant content. YouTube's ever growing, ever new stuff coming out. You can't just watch the same video over and over again. It's like completely different. I think that's why subscription works. And we're coming to the point where the internet has changed and developed so much that you need to start introducing this stuff. I think we're going to get hit with a massive paywall on the internet. When people stop making money, when all this comes, when all ads start crumbling down, or maybe even. So what I think YouTube could do, I think they're going to do this. I think they're going to put up like a YouTube ad block thing, whatever, and then they're going to put up YouTube Raw, and the people are going to subscribe to it and buy it. And then some people are going to have ads on their stuff, and some people aren't. And then what they could do is they could then release like a channel. They could release something which basically stopped ad blocks happening. And to do that, you'd have to subscribe or go through their certain thing. Because what's the problem? Why can't they just stick a video before a video and have that as an ad, embed it into the content? I don't understand why they're not doing much about that. That doesn't make sense to me. You're encoding, uploading the videos to YouTube. It doesn't take any more time to put a bit of encoding into that video or another small clip before it which has an ad in. I think they can solve the problem if they really wanted to, but I think we are going to hit a paywall. Google are going to change everything, and that's going to be sort of where we're heading to, I think. And I don't think it's wrong. I think people still need to make money, or we're not going to be able to enjoy all this stuff that people are pushing out.
I think that it comes down to, it's a symbiosis, isn't it, between creator and consumer. And like I said again, I'm more than happy to pay for something if I think it's worth it. And I think that if YouTube can use this to get money into the hands of content creators who are bringing them service, who bringing them users and bringing them clicks or whatever makes the money, then that's a great thing. That's a thing I'd be happy to pay for. And I have subscribed to streamers on Twitch who I've watched regularly because I've thought, yeah, nothing in life is free. But I think it all comes down to, there's a huge cynicism on the part of the consumer that everything, often these schemes end up being just a cash grab. They present it in a really reasonable way and say, oh, we're doing this because this, and then next thing you know, you're paying double price for map packs and stuff, it's the slippery slope argument for sure, which you can't, is difficult to argue, but I think what I'm expressing is just the worry of the everyday guy who's like, well, I don't have all this cash lying around, most people scrape together to get just whatever gaming machine they have. But then, I don't know how much YouTube content creators make right now, so I think it's a hard judgment to make. Are they struggling is the question. Are they struggling right now in the current system?
I think if you look at the effect ad blocks having on smaller businesses and then general websites, I can definitely say that there's like decreasing revenue every year from ads, and mainly because using these services. And it's hurting quite a few companies. Google have the monopoly now on the internet, so they basically decide where all the traffic goes. They have, everyone uses Google to find websites. If Google take you off that, your website's probably going to crumble and you're not going to get any views. Google own YouTube. If you're making video content for YouTube and they decide to take down your channel, then that's it. Google almost own the internet now. People use AdSense on their websites to put ads there, which now get blocked. But Google now. So if you have AdSense on every website page on your website, Google can see how people go around your website, and they can see whether they have ad block on or not, and they get all these insights that people don't have. Google really are they do massively own everything to do with the internet now, which is arguably good or bad. But again, they're the way that people are making money, and everything's going through them. And at the moment, ads just they're just crumbling. People are making less money every. And I know categorically that there's an issue with it, and everyone likes everything for free. I love getting everything for free now, but it's not going to last, I think. And I'm sure we'll see over the next 10 years whether I'll be right or not. And the best thing is all this is recorded and going to be on the internet. So.
Well, what's interesting, I think, is that it doesn't really matter what we think at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, because when YouTube did introduce ads, people hated it, but it stayed and people got over it because it's YouTube and they want to use it. And if Disney have made a deal with YouTube already as well, that's a huge. Disney are a very smart company. They update all those classic stories as cartoons, then they move seamlessly into CGI, and that becomes the norm. And then this whole Disney Infinity move, they've made so much money off realizing kids love toys and games. Let's make them buy toys to play our games. So they know when something's going to work, and I think. When you see the other giants, because obviously ESPN dropped out, didn't they? I think that when people at ESPN see that it's kind of YouTube or bust, people will get on board, and regardless of how people feel about it, it's going to happen. I agree with you, Tim, the paywall is coming.
Yeah. And, I think that's it. Did you have any last thoughts, Rob, on
I still don't think it's a good idea, or that it's needed. I think it's a cop-out on their behalf. I think there's other ways around it.
What are they?
But, like I said already, you claimed that people are losing revenue because they can't work out a way to stop ad blocker. But if one service can work it out, I imagine someone as big as Google and YouTube can work out how to do it as well.
Well,
they've clearly chosen not to, and they've probably decided that adding a paywall will be more profitable than what they can get through ads.
I do agree with that as well, to be honest. I think that's true.
Well, Chat's said a good point that I think we should leave it on that. The question is if people need YouTube or if YouTube needs people.
It's a bit of both, isn't it, really, I guess?
That is also what the chat thinks. So.
And it's whether would people rather have ads or to pay for stuff and not get ads? That is the question. Yeah. And the bottom line.
How many of us talking on YouTube?
And I guess the bottom line as well is, like Rob said, how do YouTube make the most money? Who's YouTube's competitor?
LiveLeak.
There's no one really, is there? There's
no, not at all.
If they started a paywall, I would hope someone set up another website, but again, they've got to make money, and there's ad blocker, so they might be, just fucked at this point to get any further. But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting thing. We'll see. I think you heard it here first, or probably not first, but if there is a paywall, we've definitely called it coming in.
If not, then disregard us.
Not, and then we'll delete the video and we'll pretend none of this happened. Don't hate us, Google. We like you, really, sort of. Just need to look up at that logo, just a bit terrified wherever it is. I don't know.
Just watching you, Tim. Every word you say.
They're gonna pull us. I know they're gonna pull us now.
I'm pretty sure that's a van pulling up outside my house, guys. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Has it got a camera on top of it and they're taking?
It's just black. Black windows.
Is it self-driving?
I can't see inside.
Oh, shit. It's PewDiePie. He's getting jealous, I think.
He heard me, yeah.
He's listening in because he needs to. He wants to know the secret of our success in our live stream. Yeah, someone mentioned Dailymotion as a YouTube competitor. Yeah, one day, maybe. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for watching and joining in this week. I think it was, definitely an interesting episode. We've actually been going for 2 hours now, which is longer than I thought we would. But I think we definitely got some good conversations through. So again, if you do subscribe, please do feel free to go through to Game Debate and sign up. Also, if you can subscribe and like this video, that would be great, and that would help us out quite a bit. And also that if you, as one of the many struggling websites, or maybe not so, one of the ones that we always sort of need to make a profit to keep going and to keep making videos and to keep having time to do stuff for you guys. So if you do want to become a backer and donate anything across to us, do feel head over to the Game Debate site, where there you can become a backer and make sure that sort of sites can keep going like us. And so thanks again to Rob and Jack for being here again this week, and we'll be back next week at the same time to talk more about games.
Indeed.
Cool. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.